Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonictalk, episode 750. That feels like a milestone. I don't think it's not a number that one normally celebrates, but I have to say it feels like a big one. And I want to say massive thank you to Ahead, who sent us a little case of Belgian ales. Feel free to follow suit. I'm a big fan of Belgian ales. I've never tried some of these, but it says, congratulations, Sonicstate, with episode 750. It's been a beacon of information and entertainment, pioneers in the live broadcasting and internet before YouTube has even existed. Oh, that's very kind. It's also been a place for people to connect, laugh, allow friendship and collaboration to form and inspire others. It means so much to many. Thank you, Nick, Andy, and the entire team from Bert. Well, Bert, that is ever so kind. Really, really much appreciated, and a lovely kind of way to middle the week, because obviously at the weekend we did our Sonicstate EMOM, which was the second one. Went really well. I want to thank all the performers and all the crew, and Andy as well, for all the work we put in to get it going. It was extremely tiring, so I might be putting a canvas out for people in the area who want to get into this sort of thing to come and give us a hand next time, because literally by the time the show started I was brainless, which is not a good place to be when you're operating the all of that stuff. So yeah, anyway, but before I introduce our guests, I'll do our general housekeeping. I want to say please feel free to join us on Patreon, and I'll have another message, well, from me. Hey, have you considered joining us on our Patreon? We've got a whole bunch of stuff there. In fact, there's quite a lot of extra content going to be coming up from our recent EMOM, as well as the backstage tour, which I've already posted up. I know many of you are interested in that. We've got sequential trigon extra sounds. We've got some sample sets from previous reviews. All our stuff that goes up to YouTube is also posted ad-free, so you don't have to look at the ads, and that's at a basic level as well. So if you want to join us, just head over to patreon.com/Sonicstate. You can join us at $2.50 a month for the ad-free stuff. If you want to join us at the upper tier, $5.50 a month, an absolute bargain, and you'll also get all that extra stuff. And if you join us before the end of the show, your name will appear in the end credits. Thanks for listening. Back to the show. And here I am again, although the only problem is when I record that, it gets double compressed. So you end up with, I get double, I can't remember what we use. It's Neutron, I think we use, or is it OZone? I think it's Neutron we use, which is a great channel, actually. I want to say thank you to our sponsors, which I will mention a little bit later on as well. So let's get on to our guests. We've actually, to celebrate this week, we've got the return of three favourites. We haven't seen them for such a long time. If you don't mind, I'm going to start over in the Brighton area, the south coast, with Mr. Steve Hillier, stevehillier.net, of course. Steve, big history DJ, producer, songwriter, educator, all of those things. How are you, Steve? Are you well? It's lovely to see you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. It's great to be back. I was looking at my diary and I couldn't find the entry for the last time that I was on the show. So that sort of gives you an indicator of how long I've been away. But it's great to be back, and it's nice to be in this room for the first time. We moved about a year ago, and it's taken about this much time to get this room suitable for writing music and playing with keyboards and, having just a really nice time. So, yeah, really pleased to be here, and congratulations on 750 shows.
750, yeah. Well, in fact, your room, it looks very, very similar to is that one of the reasons you bought the house? Because it literally, because the window's in the same place, your synths are roughly in the same place. I think maybe it's... Yeah. I think you were up. Well, I think the ceiling might be higher, perhaps. I'm trying to work it out.
Yeah, see, this is one of the things about Brighton. The architecture is very interesting, and there was a whole load of houses that were built around 1895. So our previous place was built in 95. This one was built in 93. So there's a whole load of design similarities. But very lucky to live in this part of the world.
Yeah, nice. It's supposed to be one of the most popular cities in the UK at the moment, I believe. If I remember correctly, I'm sure I read that somewhere in some survey or something. So yeah, nice.
Well, yeah, I'd recommend it to everybody. I was thinking this morning, I was having the most peak Brighton kind of day. I got up and I went for a run along the seafront. Then I went to our own PR company to work with AI for 3 hours. Then I went to the Buddhist center to practice meditating. Then I went to a vegan cafe for lunch, and now I've come here to do a podcast. It's absolutely come down to Brighton, everyone. You too could live like this.
Excellent. You haven't even got a beard and a man bag. Well, you may have a man bag, but you haven't got a beard, so
No, I keep the bag secret.
Okay, fair enough. Well, lovely to have you. Also, really nice to see Mr. Mark Tinley back again. We haven't seen you for such a long time. Mark, of course, previous owner. I think the Sonos Mega shop in Glastonbury is no more, or is on hold for the time being. You, of course, we saw you at EMOM. You came with your lovely wife, which was so it's really nice to see you. We've had a double dose of Tinley today, this week, which is a real pleasure. Double dose. But it's okay. I've been inoculated. How are you, Mark? Are you okay?
I'm all right, actually. Yeah, I am all right. I have closed the shop. I've put it all in storage. I've got about 400 guitars in storage, which I have absolutely no idea what to do with and haven't decided yet. As I don't know if some people know that my wife has been ill, so she had colon cancer, and they removed a big chunk of her bowel, and then it moved to her liver, and they resectioned her liver, but she seems to be on the mend. So maybe I did the wrong thing. I'm not sure. Maybe I should have carried on running the shop, but I want to keep my options open and myself free for a bit, and then we'll see where it goes after that. So I might reopen the shop. I might buy a smaller, more specialist shop, because I think I tried to please everybody. Every time someone asked for something, I was like, oh, yeah, I can get that. I can do that. I've learned a lot about things like violins and flutes and clarinets and stuff that I'd never even considered before, which is useful. But I definitely want to narrow it back down to specialist electronics and weird and wonderful guitars. So,
that sounds like a great plan. But I mean, all the best to G. I did meet her, and she seemed well, so that's great. I'm really glad to hear
she's doing all right, actually. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I am glad to hear that. I've also got Mr. Charles Chicky. There's the button I'm supposed to press. Charles Chicky Reeves, chickyandcoco.com, who's there. You're just back off the road where you've been doing front of house, I guess, which is what you kind of do a lot of. Has that been in the US or which? Yeah. Okay.
We started in LA and worked our way down the west coast of Mexico. It was a festival on a cruise ship, and it was really. I was there with Robbie Bronneman and I'm sure other people who've probably been on the show before. So we did is Howard Jones show, and it was a mad dash to get out there, and we got there. We quickly set up for a show the very first day, like as we left LA. We did a show right after we left Doc, and then another show later in the evening, and then we did nothing for 8 days, except work on our tans and go and watch a lot of other bands. Yeah, it was us and Devo and Midger and Kim Wilde and a bunch of American acts that were not so popular in the UK during the 80s, but they were big in the States. So yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun, but I just got back. So it's nice to be back on. Yeah. I don't have my sea legs on anymore, so it's good to be back on dry land.
That takes. I'm curious to know, because I mean, it's like that having just done a show out of here, I mean, where we could just drive back and shoot, I forgot the thing that I need. On a boat, you're pretty much you've got to be absolutely sure you got your packing list absolutely down and everything. And I guess what about data? Because I mean, can you? I know you can get internet, but could you access things if you needed to? I mean, that sounds like you have to plan real hard.
It was very expensive. It's about $200 to have Wi-Fi access, and it was very spotty. Like I was trying to download, because you and I have conversed about this, the Portatron thing. I'm really a big fan of that. And I was trying to download a copy of that onto my laptop, and it's not a huge file. And I think I spent almost 2 days trying to download that onto my laptop. It was just Terrible.
Old school.
Terrible. Yeah, it was like a dial-up. It wasn't much better. Although I was able to stream some shows, so that was it's strange. But yeah, so it wasn't great internet, but it was a great time, and I think I needed the sunshine. It's quite sunny here in New York. I'm in New York now, so it's quite sunny here in New York in the wintertime, but it was really cold, and so I needed a bit of a break, and that was exactly right. And we're not doing anything for a while, so we're next going to Japan, Canada, and then doing a big UK tour. That's at the end of summer. So,
maybe we'll get to see you in person. That would be nice. I should actually do another bit of housekeeping, which is don't forget to check out the Trigon 6 review. We did a twos up with Chris from Battery Operated Orchestra. Gosh, that's hard to say fast. I'm getting worse at it as well. And don't forget our EMOM is live. We've got the whole 4 hours and 9 minutes up there. And it was actually a pretty slick show because Andy shot a load of interviews. So we played, what we do is we had these 10-minute changeovers. But what happened was I'd come on just after the last act had finished and do a bit of chit chat, and then we'd play a video which was an interview with the artist that was about to come on, and play a little message from our sponsors. Thank you, Arturia. And then we'd go. So there was very little dead air, whereas last time there was quite a lot of downtime. So it worked really well. I'm very pleased about that. But we're going to be uploading all of the individual sets to YouTube with the post-match interview, and there are longer form interviews which we'll put up on Patreon for our users, and we may well put together some WAV files and stuff for those as well. So do keep an eye on the Patreon if you're a member, and if not, then consider it, because I've got a plug, well, things being as they are. We've got topics this week, so let's see where we are first. I'm just going to flip through the first one. I guess this is kind of one, seeing as we've just been talking about the 80s, it feels like an almost impossible to ignore segue that I can put in there without being too cheesy. So I'm going to play that first. So let's have a look and see what we're talking about here. Yep, Cherry Audio's Mercury 6, 40 years old today, or this year, the Jupiter 6. And all the demos are really peak 80s, if I may say so, which is okay, but there's more to it than this. So, Jupiter 6, it's available now. It's $69 at the full price, but it's actually only $49 at the moment, as we know. Cherry Audio do some very affordable packages, so they've gone for the full 9 yards. Sounds from Houston Singletree, Drew Schlesinger, James Dyson, and James Terrace. Yeah, like I said, a lot of 80s flavoured demos. Now, I actually have a Jupiter 6, and I think the Jupiter 6, I'm going to make a case for the Jupiter 6 being overshadowed by the Jupiter 8, unnecessarily so. I think the Jupiter 6 is a fantastic instrument. I don't know how close this is. I haven't had time to check it out. I mean, maybe if I get time between now, because I'm actually going to NAMM as well now, which is only in a few weeks' time. If I get time, I'll do an AB if that's possible. But I don't know. What do you think? Steve, you've got a bunch of polysynths there. Some of them are Roland, so it seems only fair I should come to you first. What do you think?
Well, I'm sort of coming at this from a different angle to you, Nick, because I had a Jupiter 6 as well for a long time. I bought it at the end of the 90s, and it was in perfect condition, £600. I couldn't believe my luck. And
wow.
I got it home, and I love the feel of it. The keyboard felt really good. It was very heavy, of course. But the sound of it just never works for me. And I couldn't really work out what the problem was until I just kind of realised, that if I'm going to have, what was it, something like 20 kilograms worth of analog synth in my little studio, it was going to have to do a lot of analog heavy lifting, if you know what I mean. But the sounds I was getting back were really, I don't know, all you had to do was just move the resonance slider on the filter just a little bit, and the sound of the resonant filter would just overwhelm any other kind of nuance that I was getting within the sound. So I did that terrible thing, I suppose, of retiring it from my studio and sticking it up on a set of shelves in my lounge, because I love the look of it, but I didn't really get on with the sound. Having said all of that, I did make a whole load of recordings of it. I've got a quite an extensive sample set from it, and I did a little bit of A/Bing with the Cherry Audio emulation, and yeah, it's pretty good. If you like that 80 sound that they've captured really successfully in their demos, then I think this plugin's going to give it to you. In terms of the original synth, I don't know, man. It just wasn't for me. I sold it. I should tell everyone I sold it about 5 years ago for $2,500. And I'm kicking myself now because I miss looking at it. Plus, also, I think they go for about 10 now, don't they? Something like that.
Do that. Wow. Okay. I'm going to go because I bought a new set of knobs for mine because I lost a fader cap and I bought a new set. So I'm going to recap it. And then I might look at that because I was always thinking I keep hold of this. I don't use it very often because here, you know, it's like it has to go on a shelf. It's not, I can't put it out everywhere. But I have to say, whenever I bring it out, and I brought it out for a Friday Synth Jam, you know, and it's even, you know, given the resonance issues you talked about, just those oscillators, when you bring them up against, you know, a lot of other synths that were coming out at the time, you just go, crikey.
Yeah.
What I have to recalibrate my assessment of other synths when I listen to something like that again. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mark, you probably spent a bunch of time around Jupiter 8 because of the work you did with Duran and Nick Rhodes.
Yeah.
I mean, so did he have a 6?
He had a 6 as well. Yeah. Yeah. And I prefer it to the Jupiter 8. My brother also had a 6. I don't know. I think he might still have it, actually. So I don't know. I prefer the look of it, and I prefer the way the oscillators hard sync. I don't know if it's different to the Jupiter 8. I never really thought about it that much. It's the Jupiter 6 seems to veer more towards the Juno 6 or Juno 60. It's sort of like somewhere in between those, isn't it? If I remember rightly.
I don't know if it's got.
So yeah, I don't know. I think I liked it better. Definitely.
Okay.
I haven't gone into any depth with this plugin. I haven't downloaded it or really thought about it too much. I do think there was another Jupiter 6 VST made by somebody that gave it away free a while ago, which didn't really sound like a Jupiter 6, if I remember rightly. And I don't know, I'm not sure about going this retro. It doesn't really have any meaning for me. I'm more interested in things that kind of push the curve on synthesis and do something slightly different. So I don't have that many of these kind of emulations of older things anymore. I'm not really using them. I've gone back to sampling and sample-based stuff that really manipulates stuff a lot. That's kind of more interesting to me at the moment.
Yeah, well, no, that's totally fair enough. I think the other thing, I think Alex Ball did a video on the Jupiter 6. I got to come to you as well, Chicky. I mean, obviously, you're touring with the guy who is Mr. Jupiter 8, or was certainly one of, he had a pair, didn't he? And he was very much into the whole thing. Are you still there? I can't tell if you're reconnected. You look like you've frozen. I don't know if he's still there. That looks, yep, I think he's gone. Okay, well, I'll wait for him to come back, and then maybe we can ask him. I think I agree with you, Mark. It's interesting, though. I hadn't really thought about the resonance, but the resonance, I don't think I use the resonance all that much, but it is quite a unique resonance. It doesn't, yeah, I can understand what I don't know if it's got, I think, like the, sorry.
I was going to say, I think it's more like the first synth I ever really laid hands on was an SH-101. And the Jupiter 6 seemed more like a big multi-timbral SH-101 than the Jupiter 8 did. I mean, I know the architecture is completely different, but the feel of it was more like programming an SH-101. Like when I first encountered a Prophet 5, I couldn't make head nor tail of a Prophet 5. It just didn't do anything I expected it to, whereas anything that works a bit like an SH-101 and has that really peaky, over-the-top resonance is easier for me to program.
One thing that one of the things that I did find a use for the Jupiter 6 for me was you've got a superb unison mode on the original hardware.
Yes.
And you can play it monophonically, and if you can just open the filter, so you're just getting the raw sound of, what would it be, 12 oscillators. You've got the facility to detune them with just a specific knob, if I remember rightly, on the front panel.
It has got a unison
and then
detune,
you've just got this huge, weighty raw oscillator sound, which can be useful in lots of different ways. And I think they've done something like that with the demo of this plugin. It really does remind me of that kind of 1983, 84 huge kind of sawtooth bass line sound that was
it does that beautifully
at that time.
And some really nice pulse width stuff. Just a quick update: Chicky's suddenly got no internet, so he's working on it. So we'll just have to pedal a bit. Hopefully, he'll be back in time. But I think I agree. I mean, sorry, go Mark.
What's that synth that's made in Bristol called again? I keep forgetting the name of. That's a 6-voice
Super 6
digital. Is it a Super 6? Is it UDO
audio?
UDO?
Yeah, that's right. UDO audio Super 6. This 6 binaural 6 stereo oscillators. Yeah, it's got that vibe. I know.
That thing sounds amazing, but that also reminds me of the Jupiter 6 in many ways, as well as being able to do many other things.
Yeah, I think so. The thing is, I use it so infrequently, and I feel ashamed to, I'm not like a collector, as in, I keep things in pristine condition. It's in a shelf over there, and I occasionally bring it out, but it literally, if I put it in the studio slot over there or on the table next to me, that's all I've got room for. That's all it is, and it's nice to have. I think it does need some effects and stuff. I mean, but it's the Jupiter 8 is kind of like the pro version of that, with the left and right outputs and the splits. You do have a split on the 6 as well, don't you? So you can actually do a unison top voice and a bassline low voice, from what I remember. So yeah, it will do.
From what I remember, Nick, I think that you can split it so that there's 2 notes on the lower part of the keyboard and 4 on the top, or the other way round. And it's something to do with that 4 and 2 note configuration is something to do with how the PCBs are configured within the unit itself. It's it's like a slightly unusual way to allocate voices, but it sort of makes sense, I suppose, if you're an electronics engineer from the early 80s.
Yeah, but that means that what it does mean is that you can have a 2-voice unison bass sound or arpeggiator on one side, and then a 4-voice pad on the top, which is actually more than enough. I mean, 6 voices is a good number. I mean, obviously the more the merrier. But yeah, I'm gonna see if I can make that do that comparison, because I'm sure people will be interested in it. And not only that, it's just lovely to. I remember Jim from Ear Monkey Music, when he came over after Superbooth a couple of years back, he was playing on the Jupiter 6, and he was getting there were these little points, because the resonance is so sharp. You can actually find these. It behaves, and I agree, it's quite Juno-like in a way. But it's more extreme. You get these kind of resonant points, which just take it to a completely different area that you just think, "What on earth is that?" And I think you can cross mod as well, one oscillator with another, so you can get a lot of places with it. I'm showing my lack of familiarity with it, which is a shame, because I did used to use it quite a lot. Okay, well, it doesn't look like Charles is back, so I think what we'll have to do is just get on to I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll play a message from our friends over at iZotope. OZone 10 is the future of mastering. The new version includes Master Assistant, match your master to any reference file or files. Also, the Stabilizer module in Advanced adds clarity with intelligent and adaptive mastering EQ. Also included is the Impact module in Advanced, which enhances the rhythm by controlling microdynamics. Don't forget the code SONIC10 at iZotope.com/Sonictalk to save an additional 10% off any software purchase, not including subscriptions. And once again, we thank them for their continued sponsorship of the show. And in fact, we do. I'm pretty sure we've got a special landing page, which if you head over to iZotope.com/Sonictalk, you get information on how to use your code, which will save you 10% off any plugin, even if it's already discounted, which I have mentioned before. But it's a great time if you really want to save some. Let's see, is that Charles just staring? No, he's still. I think his internet just dropped out, which is kind of curious. So we're going to have to. We're just going to have to continue on without him for the time being. Nice to see a bunch of people in the chat room, by the way. A lot of familiar faces that we saw from the EMOM. Oh, Synthpunk's back for more. Well, here he is. Yeah, there was a whole bunch of that Luke Pop's Nina review came out. I wonder. let's see what shall we do for our next topic. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. We've done that one. Oh, actually, maybe what we should do is Splice shuts down collaboration, because I think me and Mark actually use Splice when we collaborate on some stuff. So let's just have a look at that and see how we go. And maybe Charles will come back. Hold on, somebody's ringing. Charles is just ringing me. Before I do that, I will talk to him. Hello, Charles. Sorry, that was Charles. He's I think it was a pocket ring. I don't think he meant to do that. It's usually me that has the massive technical fails, and I'm actually doing okay so far this week. But I better not speak too soon. I was going to press a button, wasn't I? And I can't even remember what it was now. So perhaps, yeah, here we go. So Splice, basically, Splice shuts down its collaboration. This is a story from our friend over Midiera, who did the visuals actually on Saturday night. Splice is shutting down its collaboration thing, which was sort of like a version control, a very simple but kind of useful, where you could just check in a project, download projects. It would sort of render and show interesting stuff, like you could see the overview of an Ableton Live project, so you could visually sort of see what was going on, add notes. I mean, there are a number of places that do this or have done this, but it seems that this is probably not the way that they're going to be making money, Splice. And I think they did take a bunch of investments. So obviously they're concentrating on their plugin rental and the sample packs and all of that stuff. But it seems like a shame, and I'm just wondering whether that's going to be missed. I mean, Mark, me and you did actually use this, didn't we? I think we collaborated to try it out, and it was actually quite a useful way of doing things. I suppose now with more internet, it's not such a big deal, because you just do the assets and then send the new copy of the file.
I seem to remember it handled integration between different platforms quite well. So if one of you was working in Cubase and someone else was working in Ableton, you could collaborate, which I think is always a problem for people, because no matter how you export stems, it never sounds the same when you put it in the other end, or in my experience. So I thought it handled that quite well, but it's something that sat on my computer, and I guess I just sort of forgot about it. So I guess you need a huge number of musicians who are collaborating in that way all the time, really, to make it work, don't you?
Yeah, there was I think one of the other things was, these collaboration platforms tend to start in a very broad sense, where you just think, you can put your little, beat sketch up there, and all these people will get involved, and just kind of, you'll find, and this magic thing will happen. Whereas actually we ended up using it for kind of like, I've tweaked the mix here, I added this little line here, what do you think? And then you'd send something back. So on a small scale collaboration, it seemed to work quite well. But I think perhaps the initial vibe and the initial concept, it just didn't go there. I think they're shutting it down quite soon as well. I don't think it's going to be sticking around for long. I know a lot of people use it for sample. I mean, them and Loop Cloud are the two big ones. I don't know about you, Steve, whether or not you've come across Splice. I mean, in education, it's often, they push it a lot in education, don't they? So I guess it must be on your radar.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a handful of people who use it. I must admit, it's not really my thing, because I can make beats, I can program synths, and it's not really sort of been something for me. I was just thinking about this online collaboration functionality, and I remember trying it out when it first started, and it worked perfectly fine, but I shied away from it because I'm a bit of a computer and internet veteran, and I've spent so much of my life getting collaboration synchronization to work on other non-music related platforms like Office 365, which is a world of pain. When it works, it's amazing, but when it works. And so I just sort of felt like the idea of doing anything more sophisticated than swapping files on Dropbox when it came to collaboration, it just wasn't going to be the thing for me. And I do wonder, it's not clear to me, I did see this news story, it's not clear to me why it is that they're pulling this functionality. I wonder whether it's resource heavy at their end and therefore expensive to run. I don't know, Nick.
I could imagine. I mean, I think the thing is also what's happened is, we've had a much bigger upswing. Everybody does cloud storage now. So you got Amazon S3, you've got Google Cloud, you've got all of the, Google Drive. It's much easier just to kind of go, oh, I'll share this folder. And you can, I know Yoad works basically out of Dropbox. I mean, he's got a very fast connection, so his drive is always with him essentially. So he has access to everything. All his projects are kind of available to himself wherever he is, or in the granularity he wants to. And I suppose the issue is really, how much do we need this integration? I suppose version control with music stuff. I mean, we all have our own file naming things. We would, if we're working in the same DAW, once you have the basic stems, if there's a big multi-track involved, then if you do any overdubs, you've just got to send the new stuff and send an updated document. So it's not the hardest thing in the world. And I suppose having a fixed framework in how that is managed may not entirely suit the way you work. So it's kind of one of those, this is a great idea, but I can understand why people would want to do it in their own way rather than in the way that they are kind of pushing you towards. So that's possibly it.
Yeah,
but I don't know why they shut down.
I suppose also if you're collaborating with a variety of different people, like songwriters tend to do, what tends to happen is that you might start off at the beginning of the year or the beginning of a career where you've got a room full of people all using 10 different platforms with compatibility issues. But come the end of the album or the end of the year, everyone's using just the simplest thing they can find. And much like you said about Yoad, for me, that's tended to be Dropbox, which is fast and basically works,
It does. There have been some issues with it recently, though, haven't there? There was some, certainly on OS X, latest version of OS X, where things weren't quite as. Yeah. We use Google. What we do here was we use Google Drive. So we just basically, like, this show is recorded to Google Drive, and then at the end of it, I go over to that machine over there, and I just download the WAV file. I edit the podcast out of it, and it's all accessible on all my machines. So it's really, really easy. But sorry, you were going to say.
I used G Drive quite a bit here as well for other bits and pieces. I think one of the problems that Dropbox had was that they didn't have a M1 compatible, not compatible, M1 native client, and so it was running. The client on the Mac was running through the emulation layer. I can't remember the name of it, but it meant it was taking up a huge amount of resources. I remember looking when I got my first M1 laptop, looking at the amount of memory that Dropbox was using, and it was taking what seemed to be at least 70% of what was available on the computer. That's not good. I don't want that. Just to synchronize files that I'm not going to look at for a week.
Why couldn't they write an M1 app? I mean, what?
Well, they probably have.
There?
They just hadn't yet.
They probably have now, right?
Yeah.
I just use iCloud. I find iCloud
but not everybody,
useful because I chuck stuff back and forth between my phone and my computer and just.
But it's iOS specific.
So.
It's iOS specific. So
or Mac.
I don't use iCloud. Well, we have because we have a Google corporate account, or a business, whatever it is, G Suite, which means that we've got loads of shared storage. So I can just move massive amounts of files around, and it's really not a problem. So I think that's possibly it. And it just feels like maybe.
That's cross-compatible as well, though, isn't it? So you can use it with a Mac or a PC,
or a
it
phone,
does a good job of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing. Anyway, I mean, perhaps not a big story, but for those of you who perhaps are still using that service, a pretty massive story. I'm guessing Chicky has probably not been able to solve his internet problems as yet, so we'll continue moving on. What I'll do is I'll just play a message from our friends over at Baby Audio as well, because we have a message for them. Baby Audio makes creative effects plugins designed to add colour and depth to your mixes. They won Plugin of the Year 2021 in Future Music and Computer Music magazine and were nominated for the SOS Awards 2 years in a row. Why not check out Smooth Operator, a resonance suppression, equalization and compression plugin that automatically eliminates resonances and muddiness, allows you to shape your track's tonal response while the plugin automatically eliminates resonances in the background. Get 15% off when checking out with the code ST15. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Baby Audio, for support of the podcast. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but our supporters are it's very important now. Advertising is much harder to come by as everything's become kind of ring fenced by Spotify and everybody's trying to grab the podcasting market. These things make a difference, I must say. So anyway, okay, right. Let's see where we'll go to.
Can I just say something?
Oh yeah, go, Mark.
So I just started making music again, and I've been running a music shop for 7 years, so I've not really paid much attention to what's going on with plugins and stuff. And I've thought, I need this and I need that. So I got updated my Waves account and all that sort of stuff. I've never heard of Baby Audio, and I went on Plugin Boutique, and I'm just overwhelmed with the amount of plugins and virtual instruments and just the stuff that's out there. It's like there's 10 million of everything, and I don't know where to start. So
I know what you mean. It's amazing.
That sounded really useful, though. The thing that finds resonances and removes them. Well, there are a number of things that do the same thing, but they have a whole bunch. In fact, I was going to actually plug their iHeart New York 2 New York style compressor, which is a great effects compressor as well, which is great for beats and stuff.
Yeah, I must just jump in here as well. I use the Baby Audio plugins on everything I do these days, and the Super VHS it's like a sort of tape emulation plugin, but it does more than that. What I use it for is it can create a sense of wow, like when a tape is playing at the wrong speed and it sort of oscillates between different speeds. It's just really useful way of adding extra movement into
interesting.
A sound. And it's really lovely. And I was recording something last night and I got to the end of it and I was thinking I might just put a bit of a mastering plugin on it to see what happens. And I put the iZotope Neuron, I think it is, Neuron. I clicked it on and it said Mix Assistant. So I pressed that button and the whole thing just came to life. It was amazing. It turned it from a demo into what sounded like a record. And then I was like, I wonder if it sounded so different to me. And then I played it this morning and it's just amazing. It's just, I can't say enough how massive a transformation it made to my track. And it did it with, with AI or whatever.
Yeah, well, it's machine learning. It's got, because when it started out, it was a little bit fierce, and I think as it's been trained, it sort of it becomes a little more mellow. So you can dial it back, or it's sort of dialed itself back. Okay, I want to play this one because this wasn't in the original topic list. I did send it in late, but it looks like a really fascinating thing. So let me just play that. Which one is it? It's okay. I have to do it this way. I beg your pardon. So I'm going to have to go. I've got to press another button. And then I press that one. No, it's not.
So the Crave has a new sidekick.
Gosh, damn it. Hold on. I'm going to get there in a minute.
We should go.
Hello, this is Decimal, and today
we should go to the AI one.
It's a brand new sequencer and controller that can connect to a whole bunch of stuff. So it basically comes in two parts. You have the physical controller itself, and then a matrix patch analog signal mixer. You can route. Okay, this video is from a chap called Decima, and this was sent in as a question, one of the Sonic Talk questions from Mr. Gumby, and I saw it and I thought, I haven't heard about this, and I just thought, this looks a lot like, do you remember the panel with the Matrix Brute? And I was saying somebody should make a product out of that, and it looks like basically what they've done is exactly that. They've essentially taken a 16x16 audio matrix and combined it with a kind of a step sequencer style interface
interface. So not only do you have routing and mixing and modulation, but you've got I/O, you've got 3 MIDI outs, and it's currently on a sort of pre-order thing. And it does look quite big, which is a little bit maybe one thing that might be a problematic, but perfect for controlling a whole bunch of stuff. I know, Steve, have you got any of the Matrix stuff with you? Do you remember that sort of the simple way you press the Matrix button and then you dial in what you need? This looks very interesting. One could even say game changing.
Well, we all need our game changing, don't we? I have used a Matrix Brute. And the sort of grid setup there is really interesting. It's very tactile, and although I don't actually have a Matrix Brute here, I think that way of getting a whole load of what otherwise would be sort of like modular connectivity on a synth of that nature was really good. It's not quite clear to me though, Nick, what this machine is doing. Did you say it's a sequencer?
Yeah, so it will if I bring this up here, so it's basically, so you got that grid matrix which can do a sequence. You can also draw in LFO modulators for CV control. So you have CV coming out of it. There's a separate hardware rack that you plug in, and it controls the I/O of that. It also connects. It has MIDI. It's got polyphonic sequencer. So it will. Not only will it route audio, you can switch certain steps, so you can have it do that on step sequence basis, but it will also just do regular step sequencing of MIDI and of CV. So it can be the heart of a system. What I was because I was literally about to go, okay, I need this because I thought it had some slight DSP mixer functions as well, and I just thought, that's it, I'm buying that. That is absolutely. And then I realized it didn't. It just routed, which is still very useful, but just wasn't quite. But I mean, they're currently doing a deal on if you pre-order, I think it's about $1,000, which seems, when you got the hardware and the software, the two hardware bits, the interface and the surface itself, doesn't seem outrageously expensive. It will go up to about $16.99 when it's final price. I'm not sure when it's coming, but that's what it does. It's more for routing and sequencing. So it's like a hub of a modular system, maybe.
It looks kind of fascinating, and as someone who's spent, I don't know, most of the previous 10 years just working with software and computers, and now going through a sort of hardware phase, as you can see, I'm really, I do think anything that brings back that kind of tactile interface between the person and the technology, I think is really helpful. I think it takes you to new places with creativity and in your imagination, which just somehow it's just not the same with a computer and a screen, and I say that as a computer guy. So this looks really, very interesting, actually.
Yeah, I don't know when it's going to be coming out. And Mark, I don't know if you got a chance to check this out. I know it was a late edition, but I thought I would throw it in there just because I can't believe I hadn't heard about it yet.
What's really weird about this is that I use Ableton Push, and I've been using it for quite a few years, and only really realised that if you put it in fourths and chromatic mode, that the pads become the fingerboard layout of the lowest 4 strings on a guitar. And I was thinking to myself, it's just not wide enough because it's only got 8 going left to right. So I've only got, once I get above the B chord, I think. No, the A chord, actually. Once I get above A sharp.
This is Decimal.
And I run out
today
of...
I want to talk.
Oh, he's off.
Sorry about that. No, it's all right.
That's good. But so once I get above A sharp, if I transpose it, it doesn't transpose to where I'm expecting it to. It goes up an octave. So I was thinking, I need something wider. So I probably wouldn't use it for what it's been designed for. But then I get this email from you saying another show topic, and I'm like, hang on, that's got 16 going across. I want something with 6 going up and 16 going across that I can control things with. But presumably you could program this so it just sent note information, could you, as well as using it
I
for routing?
assume so. Yeah, I think it's got 3 MIDI
Routing,
outs, so
sorry.
it will also do all of that. I know it looks really interesting. I'm kind of looking forward to maybe finding out more about that, and I'm sure we will. But it's something that I'd missed, and thanks very much to Mr. Gumby for bringing that to my attention. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on it for sure. It does look kind of interesting. That's true. Okay, let's see where's going next. I knew I would mess it up. I've got this really fancy way of switching topics, which I haven't obviously figured out how to use yet, which is my own stupid fault. Let's see, AI beat making. Yeah, you wanted to talk about that, didn't you? So there was an article. I mean, this is very much of the moment, and I think this link came from ages ago. I think there are now things that will do AI beat making, and I think one thing that's quite interesting of this. If I just I'll press that, I'll make the topic go. So I'll play the actual topic. Is this the future of we spoke to a developer on the subject? This is a music radar. A music radar. Oh God, it's good. Well, anyway, it's a music radar. If I press that, then you'll get the link to it and you can read it yourself. But one thing that really came up for me is the way that AI. Everybody's freaking out about AI at the moment. We've got ChatGPT and all these things, and in many ways, it's being misdescribed. I don't think it is. A lot of this stuff is actually AI at all. What it is algorithmic data processing of extremely large data sets. AI would be able to. AI, as I understand it, is something that can have. It's not quite sentient, but it is able to configure itself based on the parameters that its environment is in. The AI that we're seeing, things like ChatGPT and whatnot, are massive data sets that were from maybe 2021. Which is why it's so factually incorrect all the time, because it's just looking at this. This is not a continuously updated data set. To update the data set to make ChatGPT refer to things that just happened yesterday would be so expensive, because it's got to kind of scour the world for all of this stuff and teach itself. So these are very different things. But having said that, the idea of machine learning and algorithmic help is really important. And I'll come to you first, actually, Steve, because you were talking about working with AI stuff in your other job, and I was thinking, well, you probably know a lot more about it than I do. I think my sort of fumbling efforts to describe or the way it's misdescribed perhaps is part of it.
No. Nick, you got me thinking, and I think you've made a really important point there about this being what feels like a static algorithm that benefits from a huge data set to pick stuff from. What I was using AI for earlier today is for image generation. I mainly use 2 different platforms. There's DALL-E, which I'm sure most people have heard of, and there's Midjourney, which is absolutely, they're both extraordinary, actually. And of course, once you use these image generation services for a while, actually not for very long at all, you start to notice their limitations very quickly. So, for example, Midjourney, which makes that fantastic looking artwork, seems to have a problem with hands and fingers. It also has a problem
and keyboards,
with duplicate and keyboards. Yeah, that's right. And legs and people's faces and dogs. There are some inherent limitations to what it can do on March the 15th, 2023. But I think that where a lot of people have been freaking out and kind of, I think, missing the point of the AI stuff that we have right now is that at the moment, they're not really human replacements, not at a professional level anyway. So you can generate something really incredible looking in Midjourney, but if you were to ever, you can't put it out there in a professional sphere without adjusting the colors a little bit in Photoshop, looking for replications within the image, looking for errors, all that kind of thing, which is not a criticism of Midjourney because it's incredible. It's just we're seeing that there's a limitation to what it can do at this moment. Same with ChatGPT. Yep. I had a long conversation with a journalist friend of mine who was explaining that although ChatGPT is very good at generating simple text and bad lyrics for songs, it's not generating what we call motivated text. It's giving a sort of very anodyne, very professional, almost like politically, I don't want to use politically correct, but politically anodyne kind of
focus grouped
version of data. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Whereas if you were to go to a human being, to ask, what is the history of architecture in Brighton, that human being would inevitably put in their own biases. They'd use language that would imply their own excitement or whatever, which you're not getting from these AIs at the moment. Now, putting that over to music, I think what this means is that at least for the foreseeable future, what we need to be doing with these AIs is not relying on them entirely to do things, or even to be thinking that they're going to replace humans. Instead, they are a new set of tools that do a few things so incredibly well that their results become rather vivid, if you know what I mean. The spectacular nature, for example, of the images from Midjourney distract from the fact that they're mainly incomplete, if you know what I mean. And I think it's a similar kind of thing in the music world. In the sense that you can generate some amazing sounding beats with some of the AI beat generators, but that doesn't give you a completed track. And that's where the human being input is still required. But I have to keep throwing in this caveat. It's required on March the 15th, 2023. Who knows where we're going to be by even the end of this year?
I would agree. I'd just like to, at this point out, before we go to Charles, because he's arrived back. Hey, he's made it. Hey. I hate to think what's been going on at your house for the last half an hour. It must have been very stressful. But we actually, we've got the Discord, which I think if I throw it here, you can get to our Discord like that. And what I've done is I've created a channel in there which has got a Midjourney bot. So rather than have to sign up and, get an account, you can just basically type, imagine Nick Bat on a beach with a synthesizer, for instance, or anything like that. And Wagyu and Steve Elbows have just been going crazy in there. There's some amazing stuff. And I'm thinking, so if you want to try it out and you've never really had the opportunity, you don't want to sign up, it's this Discord. It's bit.ly/Sonic Discord will get you to the thing. And there's a Midjourney art or an AI art channel which you could go in there and you can type the instructions in there. People will help you out. It's actually quite good fun. Sorry, I was going to come to you, Mark, but I think Charles, you're back. Phew! Thank goodness. We left you.
Wow.
We left you at the Jupiter 6, which I was going to go. We could quickly go back to that because I was going. I came to you saying you tour with a guy who was, had two Jupiter 8s. So does the Jupiter 6 figure? And you're working with some of on the sort of 80s themed, this 80s themed tour. Is there any of that stuff in your world, or is this? Is it very much the forgotten synthesizer?
No, they're not live. The stuff's not live because it's just too heavy and finicky, and our whole tour rig we can actually do as excess luggage, including front of house rack, and I know my focus is going in and out. And I'm trying to solve it by not wearing my glasses.
Know,
it's a day. It's one of those days. But yeah, live wise, it's pretty rare to see anything like a Jupiter 6 or Jupiter 8. But that said, in Howard's studio, he has
he got a 6?
2 of them. No, he doesn't have a 6. He has an 8. Yeah. And I had a 6 back in the day, and I liked it. I liked it pretty much, but I don't have it anymore, which shows how. I mean, Yeah. There are a few things I got rid of. Like, actually, I just bought, it hasn't arrived yet, I just bought an Akai AX80 because I had one of those. I loved it. Yeah, I had one of those. I loved it. And then I just changed my tune, so to speak. And now I want one again. So I bought one. But yeah, I think it might be that way with the Jupiter 6. I don't know. Gosh. Yeah, I had a hard time getting it to work in tracks. And also
interesting.
That said, I know it's very strange because I have a lot of keyboards. I'm really into synths. the one thing I don't like about synths is I don't like resonance. I never make sounds using resonance unless I'm using the resonance to make a bass sound. But yeah, it's just something I'm just not into. And I don't know why.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, I like really
it's because
dull
you have an
sounds,
uncontrollable
like
you have an uncontrollable urge to do filter mouth anytime you use resonance, and you're just trying to. Yeah, I found that I was doing that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And,
I was talking about the Jupiter 6 resonance. It's very different. It's actually, you can find fixed points in it which are really interesting, that are very different from many other kinds of resonance. So, but yeah, I get your point. That's totally.
Yeah, but it's a great little polysynth. I have quite a few analog polysynths, and I just can't see Heretic Burning He's a Witch. Oh, that's pretty funny. Yeah, I don't really now that I've got the AX80 coming in. What else do you need? I'll never need to buy another thing until I need to buy another thing. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to come back to you, Mark, because we were talking about AI, and it's interesting how there's a sort of misrepresentation of what AI is. I don't think I don't know what there is that we actually use, or that is being used, that is actually properly AI on any level. It's more highly trained algorithms on massive data sets that are static. So I don't know. I mean, it's like, can you imagine, we've talked about this before, it's almost like the kind of Microsoft paperclip, isn't it? It's like that you sort of want maybe something like that will just go, hey, this is doing 4 on the floor, maybe you should try. I've got a couple of ideas for other parts that would work with that, take them or leave them, or something that's responding to what you're doing now would be AI, I suppose, wouldn't it? And maybe useful in some instances.
I mean, I think it worries me in a way, because AI is not going to have a Johnny Rotten, is it? It's we went through the 70s with bands becoming more and more complex and music becoming something that people had to really, really work at to become proficient, and then punk comes along and completely wipes the floor with it, and just badly recorded records. People who couldn't sing or play guitars, people who definitely couldn't drum, bass players who just stayed on one note, and all that sort of stuff. It's never going to do that, because it's never going to be trained to do the thing that nobody expects. So it worries me that when I press a button, my mix goes from sounding like a rough demo to a record. But that's only because records sound like that at the moment. If we go back into some kind of punk revolution, or whatever that happens to be, or any of those major changes that happen in music where some new trend comes along and then everybody goes in that direction. I mean, this whole thing about tuning vocals and stuff, everything's so tuned. And you listen to stuff like Iggy Pop from years ago. I'll always use him as an example. He doesn't sing in time. He doesn't sing in tune. He sings with amazing human energy, and you get this sensational kind of adrenaline rush from listening to it. It's all, isn't it all going in the direction of all becoming a bit too, even the hard house stuff, or the hard, I don't know, EDM and any of that stuff. I mean, they're amazing sounds, and they knock your socks off the first time you hear them, but it's becoming, I don't know, it's becoming generic. Like we're going down this narrower and narrower and narrower kind of path of creativity, where it is literally, we're kind of shrinking the keyboard from 88 keys down to 3. It's always going to go, well, you're in the key of, I mean, like quantizing things to a key. Nobody's ever going to play a note that's outside of those keys. If you use push in the scale mode, you can always play things that sound great together, but sometimes it's really good to play totally the wrong note in the wrong place and take the thing into a Discord or to whatever. So I don't know. I'm all for, I mean, unless they can program AI to become chaotic and make mistakes. Or I'm in the 1% of people who have ADHD or Asperger's, so I'm chaotic in most situations, but sometimes that's actually an advantage. So I think it's...
no, I'd agree.
Yeah, I don't know. that's my feelings on it anyway. So
I think that, and I think that's really valid. And I think there is a sense that if we're not careful, we get homogeny, which we do. I mean, there was a period in the 90s where every single indie / Nirvana / soft metal band, new metal band was done in Pro Tools on Apogee Rosetta converters, and the whole thing all sounded exactly the same. And it was then put through the same FM style kind of mastering finish, and it all sounded like everything had been recorded on sort of chrome cassettes with Dolby.
But then everybody used the Amen loop on everything as well, didn't they? Everything had the Amen loop on it. Sorry.
Well, it does sound amazing, though. I just wanted to add something to this AI conversation, which is that one of the things that I found really helpful with Midjourney for images and also ChatGPT is the kind of serendipity, as in you can put in a prompt in Midjourney and get back something that seems completely unrelated to what you wanted, but it can take you off in a different creative journey. So you're not just having exactly what you wanted sent back to you, and then when you get something that was a surprise, then you can sort of do with that how you wish. Similar thing with ChatGPT. There's been some lonely Tuesday evenings where I've sat there and I've asked it to give me some interesting ideas for songs, and it's come back with 10 awful ones. But then if you say, right, well, okay, can you make these funnier? And then you go off on a whole load of, strange tangents. It's a bit like having your own sort of pocket collaborator. I don't mean that in a sort of Stalinist way. I mean, like a someone you actually would like to have in your pocket. And just if you know what I mean. One last thing. One of the things I was doing earlier today, we were talking about whether these things are actually intelligent or not. I'm not really sure, but I took a whole lot of photographs that I needed to prime for publication, and there was one or two where the cropping of the photograph was wrong, and I had to basically get DALL-E to generate the missing information. Now, that was absolutely fascinating in that it came back. There was a little bit of a cat's ear that was missing. It was cropped out, and DALL-E was able to analyze my photo and just generate what it thinks should have been there, and it was perfect. Now, I don't know whether that's intelligent or not. I don't know whether that's intelligent or not, but it works. If anyone's interested on seeing this image, I've just tweeted it. It's if you look at Steve Hillier UK on Twitter, that's the image I put up. Now, that is quite extraordinary. And I think when you consider, that wasn't a photograph that was going to be published or anything, but if I needed to recreate that shot, it would have been impossible because cats... They're not great performers. Plus, also, I would have had to go back to that window and whatever. It wasn't really going to work. But the
I think
AI
the problem
image
is
generator.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I think the problem is that it is intelligent, though. That is the problem, and that human beings inherently have stupidity and make errors, and when they program AI to have chaotic, idiotic ideas, then we'll end up with something that has a more human response. But I think as you're still the human having an input with this AI thing, making the decision before that anything that you're working on goes out for public consumption or whatever, right? So there's still a human element there. I don't think the AI could do it on its own unless it can be programmed to be as stupid as humans are.
Yeah.
I know, Chicky. Imagine, right? You get to a venue. It would be great if there was an AI function. The desk goes, "Don't worry, I'll put the pink noise up. Tell me where the mics are. I can tune the system. What do you think of this?" That's that would be nice, right?
Yeah, it would be nice. But like relating it even more closely to what we're doing here. So I taught a course at London Metropolitan in songwriting, and I remember, so I taught this course, and we spent about 6 weeks going through scales and all various things about music theory and about song structure and all the usual things. And then towards the end, I showed them the Captain Beats, Captain Melody, Captain Bass, all those Captain plugins, and the collective gasp, like why didn't you show us this first? And it's like, well, because I want you to know how to write a song, versus you put this in and it can come up with something that's pretty good, and pretty usable. In as much as it is AI, it's not really AI, but but the thing is, what I think, like, what you guys were talking about earlier with regards to using the amen break and how a lot of things sound the same. I think of it a bit like when you have these stars who end up on, say, Cosmopolitan or one of those magazines. Well, you think of like someone like very unique looking, and I mean specifically women I'm thinking of in this case, very unique looking women like Renee Zellweger or Madonna or Hilary Swank, or someone who has a very unique look, and yet they end up on these magazines done up in all this makeup with a hair a certain way, to where I'm like, is that Hilary Swank, or is that Charlize Theron, or is that some model I've never heard of? Like it becomes kind of hard to tell them all apart, because they all have the same type of makeup, they all have the same type of hair, same type of dress, same type of photography, and that sort of human element, the shortcut that we use to get to beauty, to whatever beauty is defined in the month that's published. All those shortcuts take away from who this person is as a human being, and I think. I know it sounds like a bit of a stretch, but that's how I feel like about a lot of how AI gets used, because a lot of people don't use it to have some serendipitous moment in which they find something unique. They use it because they're like, oh, I want to write a song the easy way. I've had students write to me recently, even going, what app can I use to make up chords for my song, and then I need it to make up a melody and a beat and a bass line. It's like, well, you're not really writing a song, are you? It's like, if you want something else to write it for you.
Spot on.
Yeah,
absolutely spot on.
Yeah. There is I still do a little bit of teaching of songwriting as well, and a lot of the discussion is about AI writing songs and whether my students will have a role from here on. And the thing that I say to them that I think is the most important thing for them to be developing, these are first year degree students, so like 18, 19, 20, is that even if most of the creative process is automated by AI, there's still, as Charles just said, there's going to be a human being at the end of that process who determines whether that result comes out or not. That's the song you hear or not. And so the number one thing that the young adults should be concentrating on right now is developing their own sense of taste and knowing what's right, what's wrong for them. It's obviously going to be subjective, but if they can do that, then they'll always have a role, in my view.
Wise words, right? I want to. I'm sorry, Mark. I want to drop the. It's a fascinating topic, and I'm sure we'll come back to it as this becomes more sort of impregnated in our daily lives. I just wanted to have one question from a listener, just to sort of bring it back to synths and whatnot and that sort of thing. This is from Nick Howes, a very prolific questioner via YouTube. Question this for next week, but I think he put it in. What keyboard player / band got you into synths? And I thought that was kind of that would be kind of a nice way to end the show. So, Charles, was there one? Is there one?
There's my focus. Yes,
there you are.
It was Depeche Mode's Broken Frame, that album specifically.
Oh, wow.
So that would be, that's what, their second album? I think the second album. And I remember I had a Yamaha CS10, and I was, plugged it into my stereo. And I remember trying to recreate sounds that I had heard. And I bought the CS10 on a lark. It was just, I didn't even know what I was buying. I mean, the next keyboard I bought was a Casio CZ5000. So, that sort of was just sort of all over the place. But I remember that album. I was trying to recreate, just the bass sounds and all the these monophonic keyboard lines in there. That album didn't stick with me that long, but I remember being kind of obsessed with it for a bit. And then I think the next thing was I started getting into Kraftwerk, and then I was hooked. So
right, nice.
Yeah,
Mark, what about you?
I
know you were more guitars to begin with, but
I was a guitarist. I was playing the guitar in bands, and I didn't know I listened to music with keyboards in. So I'd liked Pink Floyd before, and I'd liked Killing Joke's one of my favorite bands. Never really noticed that there was a keyboard player in there. Black Sabbath, never really noticed there's a keyboard player. So my story, I think I've told it before, but I'll tell a short version of it, is I'd gone to the pub with some mates, and this guy, Stuart, said, do you want to come back to my place for a smoke? So we went back to his place, and then kind of sat and did that. And then he said, this was tobacco, of course. I've got this synthesizer. Do you want to check it out? So I went in his utility room and he put this SH-101 on top of a washing machine, plugged it in, gave me a set of headphones. Everyone else sat in the front room, being what's the word?
Thoughtful.
Socializing. Socializing. And I spent maybe 2.5 hours on top of this washing machine with an SH-101, programming it because it had a little sequencer in it and working out what it could do. And then he said, I'm going to Africa for 6 months. Do you want to borrow it? And that was it. The guitar just leant against the wall, and I borrowed a drum machine off someone else, and I just started making records, or demo tapes with synthesizers and drum machines. And I think I bought an MC-202 to program my bass lines and everything else, and then synced it all to a Fostex X15, and then basically learned how to layer things and get the levels right, because you always had to bounce. So there was no particular keyboard player that really floated my boat. It was that guy Stuart. Thanks, Stuart.
Steve, what about you?
Well, do you know, I could almost put a date on it, except I can't. I remember the first time that I heard Gary Newman's Cars. This is a tune that I've talked about a lot. And I just remember, what would I have been, like 9 or 10? It just blew my tiny mind. And I remember just thinking, what is this? And then I saw the video that goes with that song, and then there was all these keyboards there, and then there was Gary flying down a whole string of polymogs, which all looked very good. So I remember asking my dad, where do I get one of those? I think he was slightly concerned about the price. So he told me to go and have a look at the Organ Centre on Welling High Street down in southeast London, where I'm from. And so I went down there and I remember having a conversation as a 10-year-old, trying to explain which one of these huge home organs, sounds like the Gary Newman record. That didn't really get me very far. But so from then on, I discovered on a completely unrelated trip up to central London that there was a shop on Soho Square called the Soho Synth House, and you could go in there. Guys, I even remember the smell. You could go in there and it was full of machines like this, but from the early 80s. I had all the classics in there. And there was one summer, must have been summer 1980, I suspect, where I went up there on my own every Saturday and just hung out in that shop, dreamy of the day that I could afford just one of them. And in the end, just like Mark, I ended up getting an SH-101. I think it would have been a couple of years later. But yeah, never look back.
Nice. I was thinking about this, actually. I think there's a couple of instances for me, because I started out listening to kind of I guess sort of jazz, stuff like Weather Report and Frank Zappa was sort of my youth. But perhaps before that, I think it's got to be Vince Clarke. It's probably Depeche Mode's first single, New Life. And that was like, oh my goodness. And then I developed an interest in synthesizers, and I started, and I couldn't afford any of it. And I was looking at the EMM&T, whatever it was, the initial magazine where they had a build your own synth on the front, and it had kind of like a Space Invader style buttons for a keyboard. And I couldn't afford that. And, but that, I think it's got to be, so it's Vince Clarke. Absolutely. So early Depeche Mode. I remember going on a holiday, a PGL holiday with a bunch of mates, which is like a camping holiday. Well, it's more like a prison camp for children, where you camp and they have a disco, and it's all kind of fairly socially brutal. And I remember that came on in the disco, and I was like, "Wow, what's that? I need to make sounds like that." And that must have been about 14 maybe. So I think they're probably responsible. But then later, George Duke, Zawinul, that sort of lot, and then I was off. But yeah, right. I think we have to call it a day. We have actually been going for a while. I'm about to go on a trip to IKEA to find a dining room table. So I really need to I need to get this finished. Yeah, so I'm fully living the life. But I want to say thank you everybody for joining us. Charles, it's lovely to have you. Thank you for persevering with your internet. I hope are you around for a while? Are you back on the road imminently, or you get to enjoy your studio? What's happening with you?
Well, if I can get my autofocus to work, I've got a lot of work. So this studio I've turned into. See if I can get it to focus. This studio I've turned into a residential studio. So it has the mix room, but I've also got separate from the house. I have residence place for. So I have my first residential client is coming in next week, and then I've got quite a lot of mixing going on, but I don't go out on tour again until the end of summer, so that's nice.
Oh right, okay. So you got plenty of time. Nice.
I'm writing a lot of stuff, and I have I have my YouTube channel, the Chicky and Coco. I'm just secretly submitting songs onto there, like at least one a week. I'm trying to get up to about 2 to 3 songs a week, and so I'm just doing a body of work. That's all I'm doing.
You're writing 2 or 3 songs a week.
Writing and submitting a video of it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I do these little eye candy videos.
Finishing 2 or 3 songs a week. Right, okay.
Yeah. Well, writing and finishing. No, writing and finishing. Yeah. And the video. So I try to get at least one out by Monday. So I just posted one the other day. And I'm just trying to I want to have a whole body of work by the end of the year, and then I'm going to sort of coalesce it all into something bigger. But
cool.
I'm mostly doing it for me.
Yeah.
So
nice.
And if people like it, great. I think I've got like 40 views of my average video. So it's like I'm not
have
really
to
promoting
send us
it,
the link and we'll see if we can find it. But okay. All right. Thank you very much, Charles. Lovely to see you. And Mr. Tinley, lovely to have you on. Hopefully we'll have you on again soon and see you again in person. Nice to see you. What are you up to?
What am I up to?
Music?
I am writing music. I've been trying to write the same song since before Gina was ill. And then there's that thing, isn't it? They always say, if you can have one hit song, that will set you up for life. Although I don't have the larger body of my life left. I figure I should just work on the same song until I've got it absolutely spot on. I've been learning to sing for the last, 7 or 8 years. And I finally figured out how to stop trying to sound like everyone else. And you have to be you. If you're not you, it doesn't matter. The moment you're trying to emulate anyone else, you're just somebody. You're a second step away from the magic that makes somebody unique or whatever. So I'd sort of like trying to like step into my true self. I've got to do this. Psychiatrist,
quite challenging but interesting.
So then, when I finished recording my vocal, I want to send the vocal to loads of people without actually playing them the track, and just go like, here, write a song or write a chord structure underneath the vocal, and then release it as an album of maybe a dozen different versions, but with the music underneath the vocal written by other people. So that's what I'm up to at the moment.
Interesting idea. Well, lovely to have you again anyway. And Mr. Steve Hillier, I know you're busy. I'm guessing you're flitting between a number of different roles. Any musical stuff on the horizon for you?
Yeah, there is. So I've got a couple of things that I'm going to be releasing over the Easter period. I'm off to South Africa next week for a little while, which is quite a trip really. But when I come back, I'm doing a release from a sort of an occasional project that I've got going, which is called Brighton Cassette Club, which is a whole collection of different songs with different singers. It's almost like a kind of Massive Attack or This Mortal Coil or Disclosure, depending on how old you are if you get the reference. It's that kind of thing. So that's kind of nice. And also, I've been going through my archive here of unreleased songs from my old band Dubstar, which was mainly active in the 90s, which is it's been really nice to revisit this stuff, but there's just an extraordinary amount that has never seen the light of day. And it's been really nice to just stick these things up on YouTube and write a little blog post just explaining the story behind each individual song. It's in some ways, it's a bit like writing your memoirs, but I'm hoping I've still got a fair amount of life left in me.
I'd say so.
I'm getting the memoirs in early. Let's put it like that.
Excellent.
So yeah, that's what's coming up.
Excellent. Well, lovely to have all of you. Thank you, everybody in the chat rooms and watching live. Don't forget to check out the EMOM and all the stuff that's there. We've got some great acts. As I say, it'll be coming up soon. And the Trigon 6 review. And we've got some other things in the pipeline. But that's it for this time. Thank you very much. We will see you all. I think, is this the right button? Yes, it is the right button. We'll see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye now.